As a leader, you know how important leadership, grit, and resilience are. That's why Dr. Cindra Kamphoff is here today. She's specialized in this area for over 20 years. She's the founder of the Mentally Strong Institute, whose purpose is to help purpose-driven leaders like you and us, as well as athletes, get to their goals quicker, multiply their confidence, and increase their influence. Cindra has worked with the Minnesota Vikings, helping their football players improve their mindset. The U.S. Olympic track and field team has worked with her at the Olympics for the exact same reason. Her best-selling book, which we're going to talk a lot about today, is called Beyond Grit, 10 Powerful Practices to Gain the High Performance Edge. It is an Amazon bestseller, and many of the ideas we're going to talk about today come from that book. Cindra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mike. I'm just pumped to be here with you and can't wait to provide awesome value to your audience.
Yeah, I know you will, and I can't wait to dig in. We'll start with Cindra. What do you believe from all of your experience is the one most important characteristic of a great leadership team?
I think the most important characteristic is psychological safety. So that means to me is the ability to make a mistake and to openly talk about your mistakes. And today we're going to talk about a tool that you can use called Learn, Burn, Return to help you build the confidence of other people, because we also know from our 2025 National Research Study on Confidence is that confidence is not just a personal issue, it's an organizational issue. So that's what I think is the most important characteristic.
Beautiful. And I'm sure we will, as you said, dig much deeper on that. And I want to start, since your book is called Beyond Grit, let's just start with kind of the obvious question, which is, what is grit? How do you define that?
The way I define it is similar to a researcher named Angela Duckworth, who first coined the term. And to me, what grit is having passion for what you do, persevering despite difficulties and setbacks, but knowing exactly what you want long term. And most people, Mike, haven't really thought about what they exactly want. They don't have it written down. They haven't written down their 5-year, 10-year goals. And grit is about persisting. Now, what grit is not is grind. And I think sometimes people they misinterpret that word. They think grit just means I got to keep pushing. But really, to have passion and perseverance for really what you want, you need energy and you need to take care of yourself, and you need a high performance toolkit to be able to, pick yourself back up when things don't go great.
Why did you decide to focus so much of your effort in your business and your life? Why did you decide to focus so much of your effort on grit?
Great question. So my background, before I, went to college, I was in high school, a really fast runner. So I ran the fastest mile in the state of Iowa my senior year. So I grew up. Yeah. And Mike, I broke lots of records, believe it or not, some that still stand today, you know,
That's incredible.
20 years later.
Running past all that corn on the only
Exactly.
thing I know of Iowa is driving on Route 80 through Iowa. And I
Yes.
think I saw corn and I don't know what else I saw, but
Yeah. There was one summer where I had a goal of running down every street in my hometown, and I got done with that in about a month.
wow.
That's how much I was running. But, when I got to college, I got a full ride college scholarship to run cross country and track at the highest level. And it was there where I was really, I got in my own way a lot. I doubted myself. I thought the more I beat myself up, the better I would do. But we actually know that's the opposite, right? The more kind and compassionate you are to yourself when things don't go perfect, that's one of the ways that supports our grit is self-compassion. And we know that self-compassion leads to high performance and more motivation. So why help people be mentally strong is because I didn't do that my own self. And I wasted most of my college career just getting in my own way, doubting myself. And that's what I really feel like is my core purpose today on this earth is to help people play bigger, if that's on the field, but in leadership and in life.
Love that. So your book is called Beyond Grit and it covers the 10 practices of high performance. Take us through at a high level, and we'll drill in to a few of these. Take us through at a high level what those 10 practices are.
So the book is called Beyond Grit because the first practice is grit. And these 10 practices are supported by research in performance psychology. So that's what my PhD is in. And they really are what allows people to thrive and be their best more often. But Mike, the important part of that is the word practice. And what that means is that we're not born with any of these things, but we have to continue to practice them. And some days we might be really great at them. Some days we might not be, right? And we have to just keep on resetting. So grit is number one. Purpose, understanding your purpose, why you do what you do is number two. Mentally strong thinking is practice three. Practice four is self-awareness, understanding yourself, right? Because you're the hardest person to lead is yourself. Practice number five is dominate the controllable. So can you stay focused on what you can control? Practice six is own the moment. So, we know that majority of our attention is not in the present moment throughout our day. And that leads to more anxiety and pressure. So can you be in the moment? Number seven is about choosing empowering emotions like gratitude and confidence. Number eight is authenticity. So showing up as your true self, which is a practice. Nine is the most difficult one for people to practice. And that one is number nine, live and let go, which we can talk about. And then 10 is about choosing courage over comfort and, really going after some big goals and being courageous because that's how you step into your potential and what you're meant to do.
Let's drill in on a few of those. Hopefully everybody, if you're listening, I know you've memorized those 10
Exactly.
already, but let's drill into a few of those. And you mentioned one of them that you mentioned. I think you said it was number 9, live and let go, is the one that's kind of most difficult for folks. So drill into that a little bit. Tell us why it's most difficult and what could we do to get better at that?
The reason it is most difficult is because we make meaning based on the past, right? So just as humans, and we also, it's difficult because we have a negativity bias. So events that haven't gone well for us, mistakes or disappointments, are more likely to run through our mind than our successes. And so I teach a signature tool in this practice 9 called Learn, Burn, Return that I trademarked last year. And it's really what I teach to professional athletes I work with, to leaders, and it's all about quickly moving on from a mistake. And I want to tell you a quick story to apply this. So I've worked with a guy named Adam Thielen in the NFL. I first met him like maybe 14 years ago. He played for the Minnesota Vikings and now plays for the Carolina Panthers. And he fumbled the ball in a playoff game against where the Vikings were playing the Saints. He went over to the sidelines and he kind of put his fist right here by his cheek, Mike, and he pushed it down. Okay. So if you're just listening, you kind of put it by his fist and then kind of anchored it down. Well, no one knew what he was doing. And an ESPN reporter was watching him. Okay. Now, next drive, he's right back in that fast. And I'm snapping because that's how fast he got back in. And because he had this next play mentality, he caught this 43-yard catch over his head. It was absolutely gorgeous. And the Vikings won the playoff game, Mike. And afterwards, this ESPN reporter named Courtney went up to Adam and said, Adam, what did you do to quickly move on from a mistake? And she said, what was this action? Now, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you what he said. Do you want to know?
So now I want to know even more, of course.
He said, well, I was pretending to flush a toilet. The next day in ESPN, the headline came out and it said, mental coach taught Adam Thielen how to flush away his mistakes. And I'm like, come on, that's how I get headlined in ESPN, flushing a toilet. So that connects to Learn, Burn, Return. And this you can use anytime you are having a difficulty moving on from a mistake, anytime you're ruminating, anytime you're overthinking. I know most overachievers who are listening to your podcast are overthinkers, and I have a few actions with this tool so you don't forget it. So the first step in the tool is called Learn. And the first thing you want to do after you've made a mistake or experienced a disappointment is to just say, what would I do differently next time? Because you can't do anything about the past, right? And you want to think more objectively and just remind yourself mistakes are never who you are. And then the second step is a burn. And burn means you choose a phrase or action. You want to use the same phrase or action every time.
Or flush a toilet.
Like flush a toilet. Yep, mine is that fast. Or maybe you want to, channel your own Taylor Swift and say, shake it off. Okay. And then the return is a power pose. So if you're watching this, you'll see me kind of put my hands on my hips. And what that means is after you've learned and burned, you really need to return. And that means building your confidence back up, reminding yourself this is what your passion and your purpose is. And I know most of your listeners, they might learn. They likely don't burn consistently and they never return. They never build themselves back up after a mistake or disappointment. And that's so important to protect our confidence.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us, but I would imagine as leaders kind of turning this to how does this something like this not only impact an individual but impact a team is as leaders, we need to learn from that and model it ourselves and I imagine help others do the same. Because if not, and we're going to talk about your confidence, research that you've done, but that what not doing that, over time is going to kill your confidence and kill the confidence of members of your team.
And that's why when you asked me that question about what's the most important leadership practice, I said psychological safety. Because, when I think about a lot of the sports teams that I work with, when I introduce learn, burn, return, what happens is then no one is on the sidelines beating each other up after a mistake. They're like, hey man, you got it next time. You can do this. And it changes the energy on the team. We need to continue to do that as leaders on a leadership team as well. Not punish people when they make a mistake, but help lift them up and help them move on quickly when things don't go perfect.
Beautiful. So that was drilling into this idea of living and letting go. And I've got in front of me, I actually have all 10 in front of me. I was prepared for us.
Good
And
job.
one of them that I want to drill into is actually your second one, which
Mm.
is getting clear on your purpose. Talk a lot, and you talked about your purpose. You mentioned that is to why you've decided to focus on grit and going beyond grit. But when we talk about a leader getting clear on their purpose, let's unpack that a little bit. What does that mean and how do we do that?
Well, the reason why is because we know that understanding and living your purpose can lead to a longer life. In fact, the research shows that people live up to 7 to 10 years longer when they understand their purpose. So it's vital for our health, our leadership, our well being. There's an amazing exercise in Beyond Grit where I actually have you write a purpose statement to guide you. And sometimes purpose can be a little scary, Mike. People think it needs to be like this download, or, people are intimidated by it. So they really don't take time to write their purpose statement. But the key for the reason you want to do that is I want you to think about purpose like a layer of onions, like an onion with a whole bunch of layers. The more you examine it and think about it, you get to what that core is all about. And you want to own your purpose, not only just know why you do what you do, but let it inform your decisions, what you say yes to, what you say no to. It should align with how you show up. And I see my purpose as being authentic and to help people go after their goals quicker and to play bigger. And when I say, I use kind of play bigger as my tagline for my goal or my purpose, that helps me show up intentionally on your podcast because I know I'm here to help people who are listening play bigger. And that means going after their more courageous goals, the goals that they are really inside them that maybe they're doubting themselves around, or, they're questioning if they can do it. Because we all experience self-doubt and automatic negative thoughts. We all get in our own way because we're human.
So I want to dig into that a little further because figuring out what your purpose is, it's something so many people struggle with and or give up on. Help companies understand their purpose as a company by saying, what do you do? And then talk about peeling back the onion. They say, here's what I do. We're a solar energy company or we do marketing. And then I say, why is that important? And why is that important? And then why you ask it about 5 times and you get to the heart of why they do it. So I've done it with companies, but for the individual, is there an exercise you recommend to help someone try to get to the heart of what their purpose really is?
Yes, in Beyond Grit, and then I have a workbook called the Beyond Grit Workbook. I have people answer 4 questions. And the first question is, what are 3 words that describe you at your best? What do you want to create or do for yourself or others? What value or result do you provide? And then how do you want to help and guide others? And so we know that purpose isn't just about us, right? To truly live your purpose, it's about helping you understand how you serve and the value you provide for others. So I ask people to write those 4 questions, and then they put it in a structure and work with it. Mike, what's fascinating is our purpose can come from difficult moments or what's called crucible moments in our life. In fact, there's a psychologist I bet you've heard of named Abraham Maslow, that his research shows that trauma, crucibles, difficult moments can lead to what's called self actualization, which is our ability to live with purpose. And when I got really clear on my purpose, it was 2013. I was just finished running the Boston Marathon, and I was a block away from the Boston Marathon bomb. I was at or near the finish line when that happened, and very, very, very scary. um, what was hard is I just ran the fastest marathon of my life, you know, but that didn't matter. What mattered most was like getting back home and seeing my family. But at the marathon, that night, what was fascinating to me is, normally we'd be celebrating and we'd be, just pumped up for each other's races, but my race didn't matter, and what mattered was my purpose. And I kept on asking myself, like, what difference do you make? Why do you do what you do? Why are you here? And it was that struggle that night and the next several nights that followed that helped me understand that I was playing small. That, I was a college professor, which, I still teach on Tuesdays. So I still do that, but I knew that I was meant for more. I wanted to speak. I wanted to write. I wanted to work for the Minnesota Vikings, even though I didn't play football. Like, I had all these really huge, courageous goals that I realized I was holding myself back from. And being at that marathon made me realize to do something courageous every day. Like, could I just do something courageous every day? And that, I think, allows you to live your purpose. When you do things that are just a little bit scary, because you're really pushing yourself to be all that you are meant to be.
Love that. And it's on the difficult days when, no matter what you do and how good you are at what you do, that, not every day is great. And on the difficult days, to be able to step back from a difficult phone call or conversation and step back and say, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing this. It is
Yeah.
so powerful. So the next one I want to dive into a little bit is one of them. What is it? It's your number 6. When I looked out of my notes, is own the moment. Talk a little bit about what that means.
What that means is, there was a research study done by Harvard scientists a couple years ago that found 53% of our attention is not in the present moment. So we're only like 47% of our day is in the present moment. And what the researchers also found was, the more time you spend in the future or the past, it also correlates with more anxiety. And so we know that anxiety is and fear are all future based emotions. Pressure is a future based because we're focused on the future. But in the moment, that is where you are at your best, right? Like, you can't experience flow, high performance when you're in the future or in the past. And so, how to increase that is to notice where your attention is and then gently get it back to the moment. And we have to keep on doing that over and over and over again. There's practices like mindfulness and meditation that you can use to get in the moment, but that is the only place you can be your best. It's the only place that flow and high performance happens. And I think the cool part is it's a practice.
Yeah, that's helpful for me. See, interesting thing when I think about this one and where I have a challenge. And by the way, I love using these sessions to get my episodes are all about me getting coaching on how to get
I
better.
know, I
I
love
get
it.
I get free coaching. It's great. You charge a lot of money and you're going to give it to me for free. But when I have that issue, it's not when I'm working on something and I'm thinking about the future, or I'm talking to someone but I'm thinking about the future. It's I wake up at 2:30 in the morning. And when I'm trying to go back to sleep, that's when I become more future focused. I don't worry about the stuff that went wrong yesterday or early. I don't obsess over that. But I think about the future, and at 2:30 in the morning, the future is never as bright as it should be. It's always the worry, what's going to go wrong. And it's so hard for me to stop that focus on the future and just, and I think, some kind of mindfulness, some kind of meditation may be the thing I need, because I will just obsess over the future. What was that? There was a Men at Work song many years ago called Overkill that was
Yeah.
all about waking up in the middle of the night and just, just obsessing over all the stuff that's wrong. And that's where I find that I probably need to, be more in the moment. Is not when, it's really when I'm trying to go back to sleep. I've got to stop thinking about the future.
Yeah, and Mike, that actually just happened to me last night where I had a difficulty kind of getting back to sleep. I use box breathing when that happens. And box breathing is where you breathe in through your nose for 4 counts, you hold it for 4 counts, you breathe out through your mouth 4 counts, and you hold it 4 counts. So it's like a box. And what's most important is that you count with it because your brain can't think about the thing you're anxious about and counting with it at the same time. That's a strategy. One, last year I was speaking at a school and I spoke there 3 different times to their staff. And the second time I was there was this guy sitting in the front, his kind of like, hands kind of crossed like this. And he just looked like he wasn't liking anything I was saying. I had a hard time just even focusing on him because I was thinking about why he doesn't like this. He came up after me afterwards and he was like, "Your first talk changed my life." And I was like, "What? You don't even seem like you're interested." But the point is that you never know really what your audience is thinking. But he said that he has had difficulty sleeping and he used two of my tools together. I talked about this concept from Daniel Amen called automatic negative thoughts and or ants, and I brought like this little plastic ant. And then I talked about learn, burn, return, which you and I talked about just now, right? So one of the things he did was he bought a plastic ant, he put it by his bed, and he'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd look at that ant and realize that those thoughts are just automatic, that he's not choosing any of those thoughts. And then he would use a burn phrase or action. And that is what allowed him to go back to sleep. And he said, "I have been having a hard time for 30 years not sleeping, and your tool changed my life." And I was like, cool.
There you go. You just gave me many hours of sleep back. I hope. I'll let
I
you know
hope
how it
too.
works.
I'm sending you some ants, Mike.
Sindra, you mentioned earlier the national study that you did on confidence. Talk more about what that study was about and what you found.
Yes, and people can download it at confidencestudy.com, and they should because it is fascinating research. We conducted this national research study across all areas within the United States, so Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, and across all generations. And one of the things that we found is that we do have a confidence crisis in America today. And this was one of the most shocking findings that we have in the study is that 1 in 2 Gen Zers, so a Gen Zer is defined as between the ages of 18 and 29. So 1 in 2 Gen Zers consistently or frequently feel like they're not enough. 1 in 2. 1 in 2 younger millennials also have the same stat. And 47% of young millennials and Gen Zers constantly compare themselves to others. And so we found in our study is that confidence isn't just a personal issue that you and I might think, like Mike has to grow his confidence, Cindra has to grow her confidence, but it's really an organizational issue because Gen Zers are the next generation of our workforce. And we also found that when a company doesn't focus on confidence and building the confidence of other people and their employees, that there are significant consequences, such as low productivity, higher stress and burnout, toxic workplace culture, even a decline in revenue. So leaders need to just be thinking about how can they continue to grow their own confidence, not arrogance, right, but their own confidence, and how can you continue to build the confidence of other people. because it is essential to the bottom line.
So how do we do that? What's a technique or method we could use to help? I guess to help build our own. Love to know both. What's a technique we could use to build our own confidence, and maybe learn, burn, return is one of those.
It is.
But also, what's a technique we could use to help build the confidence in our team members?
Perfect. I will start with team members and then let's talk about individually. Team members, what we found in our study was that, the ways that leaders hurt confidence of others at work is by providing a lack of direction and support, by micromanaging, not showing any empathy or understanding, and being unresponsive to concerns, and creating a culture where you can't make mistakes. Right? That's why I said psychological safety is so important. The things you can do as a leader to build the confidence of others is help them set goals that are outside their comfort zone, recognizing their achievements, also delegating tasks and embracing failures. So there are certain things that you can do as a leader. And I think what's the most important thing is just to help you just reflect on what do you personally do to build confidence in others and how can you do that more often? Just by saying, I believe in you, I see what's possible for you. I think you can do blank, blank, blank in the future. Having someone supportive by your side at work is so important to retain those employees. So that's how I would answer what we can do as leaders.
One thing I might add to that, and I'd love your thoughts on it, is I find that there are some leaders that believe they need to come across as perfect. There's no
Yes.
vulnerability there.
Yes.
And those leaders make it very hard, to all of your points on being able to make a mistake or ask for help. It's very hard on team members when they look to their leader as, Superman or Superwoman, with a cape on. They're perfect. So one of the things that I talk to leaders about a lot is they need to be vulnerable first. They need to be able to say, I screwed up. I need help. I don't know how to do that. I'm not very good at that. And that vulnerability helps other people feel like they could be vulnerable too, but it also helps other people understand, oh, I don't need to be perfect either. And I can still be good. Oh, I don't need to be perfect.
So we had like a list of 8 ways that leaders can boost confidence at work. One of the ones I didn't mention is model authenticity and not always having all the answers.
There you
So
go.
you're spot on that. Yeah. I think the ways that we can grow confidence in ourselves is to realize that confidence is a feeling and also a belief in self. And sometimes the feelings of confidence can actually fluctuate. And, high level executives that I've worked with, salespeople, financial planners, we work with and coach a wide variety of people at Mentally Strong. Even professional athletes I've worked with have told me their confidence can fluctuate. And I think that's important to realize. There's feedback that can impact confidence. There's, maybe a disappointment or a difficulty or a setback that can influence confidence, but don't let the feeling of confidence impact your belief in yourself. Those feelings, it's really more how you interpret that feeling that's most important. In my upcoming book, I have a book that's going to be published by Simon and Schuster in September 2026. So,
Congrats.
yeah, I'm very pumped about it. But in the book, I talk about 7 practices to grow confidence. And one of those is learn, burn, return. So quickly moving on from things when they don't go perfect.
Yeah, wondering too, want to get your thoughts on this. And again, this is me getting therapy for free, is when, I'm generally a confident person. I believe that. However, when my confidence wanes, it's typically not because I screw something up or I don't think I'm very good at something. It's comparison. One of the things that I do, and this I believe is a good thing, but it comes with some consequences that I have needed to be aware of, is one of the things I learned, early on is I always need to upgrade my neighborhood. Who am I spending time with? Am I spending time with all people that are kind of at my level or aspiring to be at my level? Mostly on the business side I'm talking about. Or am I spending a lot of time with people I aspire to be, who have done amazing things, who have stronger businesses than I have? And there's so much positive in doing that because it challenges me to be my best, and it challenges me to set bigger goals, and I learn from them and I'm inspired by them. But at the same time, it could be a kick on the ego. Like, there are a whole bunch of people that look at what I built at my business and say, oh my God, Mike, how did you do that? But I spend most of my time looking at people that have double and triple the size businesses I have and saying, why aren't I there? So it's a double-edged sword.
It is. There are barriers and traps to confidence, such as, here's four of them, is our own self-doubt. Overthinking is a barrier. Judgment is a barrier. Judgment of ourselves or judgment of others. And comparison is a barrier. And, we know that, what is that quote from Jim Rohn? You're the average of the five people you
Yeah.
spend with. I love that quote. And there's research to support you do become who you surround yourself with. But what's important, I like to use this tool called the truth meter that I think that you'd like, Mike. It was published in my second book called Beyond Grit for Business. And it's a series of 3 questions when you notice yourself holding yourself back or you experience a disempowering thought. Question 1, is this thought true? Question 2 is this thought serving me? Like, is it helping me be the best version of myself? And question 3 is, what would be a more empowering thought I could choose instead? And what I love about the truth meter is it allows you just to take a step back and examine, are my thoughts really true? We know most of our thoughts are not true, and they're just a repeat of what we said yesterday, right? So what do you think the actual thought is that, and people can do this as they're listening with their actual thoughts, but what's the actual thought, Mike, that you think creates the comparison?
I think when I look at that for me, and I look at someone, say it's a coach or a speaker that's got a bigger business, than I have, and bigger isn't always better. I just did a whole interview with someone on that, but let's say it's bigger and better. I might look and say that and say, is that true? And the first question might be, it's true. But your second question, is that thought serving me to say I'm less than because they've got this bigger business? No, it's not serving me. And then the third question, a more empowering thought would be, the more time I spend with people like that, the better I'm going to be able to build what I want to build. Or, a more empowering thought might be, just because that's what they've built doesn't mean that that's what I should be building. Maybe I should be building something else. So that, but for me, it's this thinking of being, feeling less than because someone has done more. And the quote I always have in my head, that helps, but it doesn't mean I don't fall into the trap, is I'm a big Teddy Roosevelt fan. And his famous comparison quote is, comparison is the thief of joy. And
Yes.
I was thinking of it as like, that's true when we're comparing ourselves to others. What I like to do is compare myself to who I am now versus who I was.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That, I think, is a beautiful comparison, but it's when we compare ourselves to others that we can get in
Right.
trouble.
Yes, and I mean, I love the way you just went through those questions. And in Beyond Grit, there's a chapter about comparison, and we never compare our whole selves to someone else's whole self, or our whole business to someone else's whole business. It's usually like the thing I really, really like. I used to compare myself to my friend Lindsay a lot, who I like to run. She likes to run, and she's so tall and slender. And it's like, but when I look underneath my comparison to Lindsay, I realize it just is, what's underneath that is my desire to be faster as a runner, right? So I'd encourage you to also think about what's underneath that comparison. What is that comparison really telling you, Mike, about what you want and what you desire? And maybe that could be the powerful thing you repeat to yourself when you know that you're comparing, that more empowering thought. But I love what you said is like, what can I learn from them? Or how can they inspire me? Or, because, underlying everyone's negativity is this belief we're not enough in some way. And even your statement represented that. Like, I'm less than, I'm
Yeah.
not enough because my business isn't blank, 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 you know?
Love that.
That
Love
alone,
that. Now
we
you,
that.
yeah, you, Sindra, work with, some of the world's best athletes, like you said, Minnesota Vikings, the Olympics, entrepreneurs, leaders. What do you see the best of the best doing differently?
That's such a great question. I see them every day training their mind. And your mind is what powers everything you do. It powers your emotions. It powers your legacy. It ultimately powers, your activity throughout your day. But most importantly, it powers your identity and your belief in yourself. And when I think about the best of the best, they keep leveling up their identity. And what I mean by that is whatever we put behind I am, we become more of. Right. And so, like, I used to allow myself, Mike, to say, like, I'm a procrastinator, or I'm terrible at learning people's names. And that's actually not even true. I wouldn't even learn people's names because that's what I believed about myself, or I wasn't really a procrastinator. I just expected myself to get all extra things done in one day and it wasn't realistic, And so, but if I believe I'm terrible at learning people's names, I don't even try. So you have to be really careful with what you believe about yourself. And, it's usually those things that we think that we can't do or what we're not that really holds us back. And so continuing to level that up, I have statements I say to myself every morning, Mike, that represents like the identity I want to keep moving into. One is I'm passionate in love with what I do. I hope, you heard that just in my conversation with you today. But another one is I'm the best damn keynote speaker you've ever heard. Now, that's because that's what I want to be. I want to keep growing to be one of the best you've ever heard, right? And I want to continue to do that as long as I'm on this earth. And so just by repeating those things to myself, even if it's just silently in my own mind, right? That's who I believe I am. Maybe it's like I'm a proud business owner for you. I wonder what you want to keep on reminding yourself of to build your identity.
I love that. Actually, I have a list of affirmations like that,
Yes.
that frankly you're reminding me to get back into the habit of using them. But a funny story is I was talking to my business coach, who's amazing. I've been working with him about 15 years. And I did something that went well, and for whatever reason, I was surprised it went well. And
Okay.
he said to me, why are you surprised? You're Mike effin Goldman. Although he didn't say effin, he
Yeah,
said the
I
whole
love it.
word.
You said
But
it
he
okay.
said, you're Mike effin Goldman. And I thought, that's really cool. So now I have, on my affirmations, I'm Mike effin Goldman. And the funny thing is I went back to my coach and I said, hey David, I added that to my affirmations. I'm Mike effin Goldman. And he said, well, what do you mean? I have in my affirmations, I coach Mike effin Goldman.
That's awesome.
So I thought that was cool.
That
Sindra,
was
what
funny.
what are some ways we've talked about so much powerful stuff here for leaders and any individual? How do you actually help your clients? What's your business model? Obviously, you do speaking because you're the best damn keynote speaker.
It's awesome.
So obviously, speaking is part of what you do. But how else do you go out there and help folks?
Yeah, so I am a keynote speaker. I became one after being at the Boston Marathon bombing because just like following my own purpose. We have a company called the Mentally Strong Institute. And besides keynote speaking, we offer one on one coaching. Also, so who we coach is like leaders, entrepreneurs, athletes who really want to be their best more often and realize the importance of their mind. And we do that by teaching them the 10 practices of being mentally strong, but also helping them, get to their goals quicker and build their confidence intentionally. We offer a couple of other things. I do a mentally strong coach certification, and this is for leaders who want to bring the mentally strong practice and the 10 practices back to their organization. And then we offer an academy. So people who want to just learn more from me every month live. So those are the kind of things that we do. But coaching is like our main kind of bread and butter, the one that we impact, thousands of people all over the world every year.
And where should people go if they want to find out more about you, your speaking, your coaching?
I'm going to encourage people to sign up for a free mental breakthrough call. And this is just a call where we'll say, hey, where did you hear about us? And you'll say Mike's podcast, and we'll be like, oh my gosh, we'll help you just better understand what are the takeaways. And then we'll help you create a breakthrough. And then if there's anything you want to learn about that I just mentioned, we'll share that with you as well. But a breakthrough to me is just a moment of more clarity. So people can go to freementalbreakthroughcall.com. Okay, so freementalbreakthroughcall.com to find out more information and sign up.
Great. And we'll put that in the show notes. Absolutely take her up on that. I got free coaching today and got value out of it. So you will too. Well, Cindra, thanks so much. I always say if you want a great company, you need a great leadership team. Thanks so much for helping us get there today. This is great.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I appreciate you, and keep crushing on this podcast. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you very much.